Hi everyone, I'm Ravindra, the founder and CEO of the Asian Network, and I will be for this final session. The future of health innovation in Asia Virtual Conference, joint event organized by the Asian Network and AREA, the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia. Welcome to our first and last session on shifting demographics and lifestyle in Asia. At the end of our panel discussion, we'll have a Q&A session, so please feel free to write question in the chat box. For the opening remarks, we have the honor to have Mr. Cecchini Michele, OECD, Head Program Work on Public Health.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for the invitation to contribute to the event on future health in Asia. It's my pleasure to join you today, unfortunately only in a virtual format, and to give the opening remarks of the session on the impact of shifting demographics and lifestyle in Asia. Shifting demographics and changes in lifestyles are indeed among the greatest challenges that healthcare systems in the Asia-Pacific region, as well as in the OECD, have to face. Population aging and unhealthy lifestyle also have a significant impact on other emerging public health threats, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. But let's move in order and let me back up this statement with some evidence. Since 2000, life expectancy of people living in the Asia-Pacific region has increased significantly. According to the data from the latest edition of OECD Health at a Glance Asia-Pacific, life expectancy has increased by 6 years across low and lower middle-income countries and 4 years across upper, middle, and high-income countries. To a large extent, this achievement reflects countries' success in implementing health and development policy over the last few decades. These positive trends are expected to continue into the future. Over the next decade, the share of the population aged 65 years and over is expected to increase by nearly 2.5 times across countries at a lower level of income. Instead, across countries at higher income, more than 1 in 4 citizens is expected to be older than 65 in 2050. If these trends are confirmed, by 2050, 11 Asia-Pacific countries will be qualified as super age society. To give you an idea, in 2020, there was only 1. The pressure of an aging population on our healthcare systems and our economies will crucially depend on the health status of people as they age. On the one side, we need to start working now to ensure that our healthcare system will be ready to meet the greater demand for services, particularly those connected to treating chronic diseases such as heart diseases, cancers, and diabetes. At the same time, and this brings us to my second point, we need to implement policies supporting a healthy aging by promoting healthier lifestyle. If we look at the data, about 3.5 million deaths per year are amenable to tobacco consumption, which is certainly the greatest challenge in the region. However, when we group together closely related risk factors such as overweight, unhealthy diet, lack of physical activity, and their direct consequences such as high blood sugar, well, together this group of conditions is responsible for more than 10 million deaths per year. Harmful alcohol consumption closed the list of the top 3 lifestyle-related killers by causing about 1 million deaths per year across the region. Let me also open a parenthesis and bring up what I consider a top 4th priority. This is not a lifestyle-related risk factor, but our lifestyles have a significant impact on it. Pollution and environmental changes are one of the greatest challenges of our time, and they are directly responsible for about 2.5 million deaths per year in the region, not to count all the indirect deaths they cause, for example, through flooding. Getting back to overweight and its associated risk factor, at the OECD, we have evaluated that in countries such as Indonesia, China, Japan, Korea, life expectancy is 1 to 2 years lower than it would be otherwise to diseases caused by overweight. In countries where overweight is more prevalent, such as Australia and New Zealand, life expectancy is up to 3 years lower than it would be otherwise. In the same group of countries, we calculated the healthcare system already spend between 6 and 9% of their annual budget to treat the consequences of overweight and its related unhealthy lifestyles. These conditions also have a direct impact on our economy. People with diseases caused by overweight, tobacco consumption, alcohol consumption are less likely to be employed, require more sick leave, and retire early than their healthier peers. For example, we calculated that removing the disease caused by overweight would boost the GDP of Indonesia, Australia, and New Zealand by about 3%, and the GDP of other major economies in the region by around 1.5% to 2.5%. My intervention is getting to an end, but before leaving, I also want to share with you what we at the OECD think should be the way forward to start addressing these threats. My overarching message is that an effective response to all these challenges requires concerted population approaches under a strong public health system. Based on our analysis, the top priorities for action should be: in the field of promoting healthier lifestyle, we need to make sure that we implement policies in their most effective version. Too often, countries implement alternatives not meeting the highest standard. We also need to overcome limited resources or practical problems that too often limit the number of individuals that would potentially benefit from the policy. Our analysis showed that well-designed intervention to decrease tobacco consumption, for example through taxation and regulation, and countries such as Australia and New Zealand in the region are certainly at the forefront of this in the OECD, and to promote active lifestyle and healthier diets, for example by incentivizing the formulation of food, including through labeling and information to consumers, to decrease sugar, fat, and calorie content, are an effective and efficient investment for countries in the OECD and the Asia-Pacific region. As a complementary and innovative approach, countries could also consider promoting health and well-being at the workplace. This is an area that is gaining momentum across government, and the OECD is working on the topic with support from Japan and with analysis focusing on the Asia-Pacific region. Early findings from our work on promoting health and well-being in the workplace will be released later this year. These findings suggest that companies investing in such policies show better performances on the stock market, attracting more investors and creating a positive circle in which everyone, employees, employers, and governments, gain something. When it comes to detection and treatment, we need to optimize the delivery of healthcare services to ensure their effectiveness and to maximize their efficiency. It's crucial to roll out intervention to avoid that healthcare expenditure becomes unbearable, even for countries at higher income. To this extent, some of our analysis suggests that moving treatment from hospital to the community and use of new technology may help countries towards this objective. Tackling risk factors such as tobacco, overweight, also improves the resilience of healthcare system vis-à-vis emerging threats such as COVID-19. It's well known how the probability of requiring intensive care and the risk of deaths were much higher in people with overweight and with multiple chronic diseases. Preventing lifestyle-related risk factors has therefore a double advantage. First, it keeps people healthy and decreases use of healthcare services. Second, it allows healthcare services to focus their limited resources on those at highest need. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I hope that my inputs have provided some food for thought for the panel discussion that will follow up. Once more, thanks for the invitation. I wish you all an excellent discussion and continuation of the meeting.
Mr. Michele Cecchini, for your opening remarks. Before we dive into our topic, let me introduce now to our three guest speakers today. First, we have Pragya, TEDx speakers around mental disorder. For the past 7 years, Pragya has been working in different capacities in organizing work with denotified tribes of India and marginalized communities around education and well-being. She has also trained various state functionaries such as school teachers, principals, parents, counselors, lecturers, and special educators from more than 13 states of India on theme around child mental health, protections, and gender. Welcome, Pragya. Then we have Mr. Sandeep Bhalekar, Data Operation Head, COVID-19 Response at Victorian Department of Health. Sandeep, hands-on data science professional having over 14 years of experience in banking domain, driving artificial intelligence, data analytics, and automations initiatives. Proficiency in various technologies, starting from the legacy platform to newest artificial intelligence-related technologies. Welcome, Sandeep. Then finally, we have Mr. Charles Brax, Charles is a founder and CEO of Nounou.com that has been awarded Best Digital EL Startup by Bayer China, Best World Impact InsurTech by DIA in Munich, World Top 100 Technology Pioneers at the World Economic Forum 2021, and just recently, 2022 World Winner of Healthy Aging Innovation Prize by the UN, WHO, and GCOA. Welcome, Charles. So let me start with Pragya about these specific questions, which are also connected with intergenerational relationship issues. So according to you, a trauma can affect the life cycle from child to adult. How can it be disrupted? Pragya, the floor is yours.
Yeah. You can hear me, right?
Very well.
Okay. So, intergenerational trauma has a lot of connection with ACEs. So, ACEs is adverse childhood experiences. Now, as quoted by Dr. Robert Bloch, who is the former president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, he says that ACEs are the single greatest unaddressed public health threat faced by us today. There's a lot of research done on ACEs. One of the research I would like to quote here, which is done by Kaiser Permanente and the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, that shows that ACEs scores are correlated with health outcomes. Children and adults with high scores, that is, ACEs test has a total of 10 questions. Out of 10, if the scores are more than 4 or 4, then children and adults with these kind of high scores have they are 2 times more likely to develop a heart disease. They are 2 times more likely to develop a stroke. They are 5 times more likely to experience depression, 10 times more likely to use drugs, and 12 times more likely to attempt a suicide. Right? Now, children are especially sensitive to repeated stress activation because their brains and bodies are still developing. Now, this is quoted by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. She's a pediatrician. She also says that high doses of adversity not only affects the brain structure and function, it also affects the developing immune system, developing hormonal system, and even the way our DNA is read and transcribed. Now, where does all this trauma comes from? Yeah, how is trauma so impactful that it impacts the immune system, that it impacts the hormonal system, the entire structure, the DNA of the body? Now, trauma has a lot to do with complex family dynamics, with harm, with neglect, with having no ground for listening for anyone, for a child or for an adult. Right? 1 in 4 children in India in the age group of 13 to 15 have depression. Now, this is a data quoted by WHO, World Health Organization. Right? ACEs or adverse childhood experiences are traumatic events that has a long-lasting effect on individuals' well-being. 67% of the world population have at least one ACEs, that is one adverse childhood experiences, and if someone has 6 out of 10 ACEs in their lives, they have higher chances to die 20 years earlier to them, those who have none. Right? So trauma has a lot to do with the body, with the mind, with how we perceive life, with how we perceive decisions, with how we perceive social relationships, with how we perceive family structures, with how we perceive partnership, with how we perceive love, with how we perceive affection. Trauma has a lot to do with everything. Right? We clearly see the physical attributes we received from previous generations, like hair or eye color, right? But there's so much more that we inherit, something that we don't see. That includes our family's emotional history, that includes parents or grandparents' anxieties, fears, prejudices, phobia, and we keep practicing it, we keep applying it in our personal lives, and we pass it on. We just don't stop there. We pass it on to our next generation through our behaviors, through our perspectives, through our cultural expectations, right? Through our genes as well. Now, our parents were never taught that, healthy communication is also a way. We were generally told that if you are angry with your child, you can roll your eyes, you can speak in an aggressive tone, you can be passive aggressive, or you can provide silent treatment to the child or neglect the child while they are seeking our attention, while they need us, while they need some pampering from us. This is what has been taught to us as parents. We don't realize that such attitudes in itself are problematic. Now, as adults, our focus should be more on learning how to communicate. Communicate with respect, with empathy, with clarity. But most of us today fight and fight to win because this is what we have witnessed as children. Winning is important. And this, yes, sorry.
Thank you, Pragya. So sorry, I need to shortcut you a bit because it's 3 minutes roughly allocated per speaker, also for the questions. So, sorry about that, Pragya.
No problem.
Let me ask now to Sandeep or Charles. I don't know if Charles is still in the sessions. He might have facing okay. So let me ask Charles about this question. What are intergenerational relationship issues in your respective countries, such as China? Charles, the floor is yours.
Well, here in China, thank you for your question. Here in China, the intergenerational relation are very important because, as you know, China family has only one child, basically. Of course, the law changes. A few years ago, now they have a right to have up to three children, but still, many of the current situation here is only one child. That means if you have only one child, so the parents are in a sandwich between two grandparents and their unique child. That means intergenerational relationships are very important, not only for, of course, maximizing the love and the social relationship, but also, of course, economic bondage. Each of them rely to each other to be able to sustain equilibrium and safety for all the family. So they are very stick to one another. The bondage is very strong, and that's my explain why for 5,000 years China has been very solid and compact compared to other civilizations.
Thank you, Charles, for sharing this relationship issues in China, and I do agree with you. We are think that this is also an important question because we have been doing 2 years of COVID-19, and it affects a lot business and institution. And I will have the perspective of Charles after you, Pragya. But let me ask you, related to your specific industry, what is the best advice for the youth in India to raise the mental awareness? And there is a lot of students also who are looking at our webinar. So please, if you can share some of your best practices. Thanks, Pragya.
So I think the first most important and most affordable practice is creating a schedule or a timetable for every week, for every day. Now this timetable must comprise of not just educational activities such as doing homework or classwork or attending school or college, but also me time, such as journaling. In journaling specifically, writing out every single emotion, every single feeling, especially when they are angry, when you are sad, when you're frustrated, when you're filled with shame or guilt, any negative emotion. Write everything down, and especially you can even try drawing the image of that particular person who has made you upset or who has made you angry. Right? You can draw the image of that person and write every word down in the piece of paper. Once you are done writing everything, you can either tear it down or you can burn it. So this way you have processed every negative emotion and you have tried releasing it rather than storing it in your body as another negative file. So this is one thing. So these are two things. One is creating a timetable. Now, timetable helps you to be certain about how your day looks like, about what you're going to do in a day, right? And journaling helps you with processing your emotions. Thirdly, spend time with nature. do some concrete activities like walking barefoot in the garden, smelling the leaves or flowers, right? Putting your feet in the water, or playing with clay or sand, or doing artwork by it. So nature has this capacity of grounding us, and when we are high on emotions, spending time in nature helps us to calm ourselves or ground ourselves. So this is another thing that I would recommend.
Thank you, Pragya. Now let me ask this question to Charles. So how does COVID-19 affect your respective business with Nounou? Any key learnings to share with our audience, Charles, please? Thank you.
Yes. So as you know, based in Shanghai, China, and as you all know, the government policy for COVID is zero COVID. So that's why since more than 2 years now, the borders are closed, still closed, and there's very strict regulation on exchange between China in and out. So that has important impact in the way we do our business, because we were mainly focused on the Chinese market because we were not able to travel, and the supply chain was not that free, but we had some more opportunities in terms of local, because we were focusing on local due to the lack of exchanges between China and the other part of the world. It doesn't mean that we didn't have any business with the rest of the world, but I would say it was quite challenging to find the right equilibrium, to find revenues stream and a steady stream between China and the rest of the world, because we are in 12 countries, 4 continents. And the most important thing is, how is it possible to scale up when we have this zero COVID restriction and we have lack of exchanges between China and the other country. So it was quite very challenging, especially the last 2 months, where everybody knows that we were all locked down in our own apartments. So we live in our own apartments. So I would say that business is all about change, and change is all about challenges. We have to be resilient. That's the purpose of entrepreneurship, and that's why we try with our dream team to be as resilient as possible. And I want to thank my dream team and partners, and also customers who keep trusting in us, as well as our investors.
Thank you, Charles. I think resilience, especially during COVID-19 time as entrepreneur, is important. I will add a second one, which is agility. That also we might consider. So it's great to have also the perspective of you, Sandeep, more with the Victorian Department Health, how it has been affected by COVID-19, and what are the key learnings from that to share with the audience, Sandeep?
And first of all, I think I'm quite audible now. So
It's better.
Sorry about that. And first of all, I think I'll completely agree what Charles said. COVID has had enormous amount of impact on small and medium businesses, and even large businesses for that matter. And especially in Melbourne, where we had like enormous amount of lockdowns, and so it was really tough on small businesses. But having said that, what government did in Australia is, I think, superbly good, because I mean the way they have supported small businesses. We had policies like JobKeeper, where if someone is unable to pay their employees, government was paying for their contribution to their salaries. And then we had a policy called as Job Seeker, the people who already lost the jobs because of the COVID pandemic. For them, governments were supporting in terms of finding the job, and obviously they were providing the funds to for their day-to-day their life. So I think that kind of support was needed in COVID-19 response. And I think in entire world, developed countries, they have had some sort of support. In Singapore, I know they had the similar kind of arrangement. In the US also they had, but especially Victorian government, they have acted enormously. And obviously coming from the Department of Health, how we contributed to that, obviously, rather than doing the lockdowns across the state or across the country, we had wastewater surveillance. That means what we were doing, obviously, doing the surveillance on the water coming from each and every suburb and areas, and based on that we were doing the testing which area is affected with the COVID, and only that area was we locked down that particular suburb. So that gave a lot of breathing opportunity for the other areas. If we have one patient, and obviously I'm talking about the 2020 and 2021 time frame where lockdowns were immense, and then there was a lot of fear because there was no vaccination was not available. So even people were not willing to go out, and at the same time there was a lot of cases, and these cases were causing a lot of fear in general public. So with these kind of systems, we were able to manage to keep open the areas where there were no cases. So small and medium businesses, they had this foot traffic, that was called, right? People go out and actually they look around and they do shopping. So they were able to do that. So it's a very beautiful way how we progressed and stop the impact. But in that phase, and I think talking about the impacts, what in Australia what we had, obviously Australia is a country built on tourism. Like tourism is a very big chunk. So tourism was completely stopped. That is across the world, if I'm not wrong. But Australia is also known for its education, and a lot of a lot of people from China and Asia, they come here for
Yes.
bachelor's degree, master's degree, and for education. That was completely stopped. So universities were having a huge impact, and that they contribute close to, I think, 8 to 9% of country's GDP. So that was
Yes.
again, and then obviously because of shipping stops, we had impacts on import and export, and obviously that impacted the housing market, because housing market is completely dependent upon shipping coming from overseas, and that's what we use to build the houses here. So there was enormous impact, and it's a kind of a chain of reactions. One starts after another. But I think in that scenario and in that circumstances, what we have done is, and it's really appreciable.
Thank you, Sandeep, for having your thought on this question. So now let's ask me the third and final questions, more related to elderly patients. I think starting with Pragya, what can we suggest for senior patients to live longer?
So one thing that I feel is, once you are retired or you are senior in the most senior phase of your life, you have a fear around death. Yeah, you have a fear of losing, fear of uncertainty about life and of death. So one thing is to understand, to talk about death, to understand death, because death is the only certain thing you know right from your existence, that it will come, but we stigmatize it. We abandon discussing it. We think that if we talk more about it, it might just show up, and how will we deal with it? But it's like preparing yourself to give a first aid, or to provide resuscitation to someone who is either choking or not able to breathe. Right? So learning about death is very important, very crucial. It then helps us to prepare around death and helps us to deal with it better and grieve with acceptance. Secondly, promoting a culture of support groups, where groups come together, teams come together, people come together, they meet at a designated place at a designated time, and they do fun activities together like art and craft or group meditation, group exercises, and have a healthy approach towards life, eating nutritious diet, uh, going for a walk, or maybe having a storytelling time eat every night. One of the team member leads and reads aloud a story, and everybody listens. Also establishing a routine for themselves. What I'm going to do the entire day, right? Because again, healthy establishing a routine increases certainty and cultivates a motivation that, okay, this is how my day is going to look like, and I have the ownership, I have the responsibility to take my day wherever and however I want to. So these are certain things I would like to say.
Thank you, Pragya. Very, very interesting. Now I'm turning on Sandeep. I know that you've been specialized in artificial intelligence and data analysis. So how does your work improve the healthcare system and benefit elderly patients?
Enormously. I think data is the backbone of everything currently. We have so many devices collecting data points every second, and I think data is the past which we look at to understand our present and predict our future, and that's where the prediction comes in, right? So we are understanding what we have done so far, collecting the data and reading the historical data, and the IoT devices what we are using currently, they are helping us enormously. I mean, they have been backbone of collecting all the data points what we need. For example, I think we are able to detect cancer far more efficiently than previously. Obviously, we had a cancer detection coming from the doctor's eyes, and they were obviously trying to detect the different kind of cancer cells. Now with machine learning and artificial intelligence, with just a click of the photo, you can analyze whether which kind of cancer is that. So that is all because of the data points we are able to collect, and the deep learning capabilities, the compute which we are getting. Obviously, we had this kind of statistical method before, but compute was not available. But currently, we are in the world where science is such an advanced level that we can leverage this compute to predict something what can happen in future. So currently, if you can talk about what is happening in this space. We are also doing a lot of, for example, diabetes. For diabetes patient, if every day twice they have to pin their body and take out the blood, and obviously look at what is the HbA1c, and how the glucose levels are going up. So that is the area where a lot of research is being done, and the devices like your smartwatch and other things. We are doing a lot of research there. If those devices can count your blood glucose level, so that there is a lot of happening in that world, and I think artificial intelligence is playing a big role there. So that is related to detecting something and predicting something. But also we have robotics, right? So we have the robot hands and robot, they are helping a lot in terms of aging population. In Singapore, in Hong Kong, there are a lot of aged population who do not live with their, they live on their own in the small apartment. And there has been cases that patients have died in the apartment living alone, and no one has noticed. And then obviously in such instances, they don't get help when it is most needed. So now with current system, we have the SOS kind of systems where they can call, and then obviously support system, and obviously the IoT devices what we are talking about. As soon as the pulse rate goes down, they automatically call the emergency services. So that is all possible because of the artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So I think we are in a really nice age, and we can do really wonderful things ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Sandeep. I think predictions, anticipations, and also robots. I think it's a perfect transition to ask this question to Charles, because he have innovated a holistic solution approach to support the aging population, especially in China, but all across the globe. So I'm happy to hear from you, Charles, about Nounou, how to improve the healthcare system and benefit elderly patients. Thanks, Charles. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So the idea basically was to start from rethinking the delivery of healthcare from traditional and try to innovate on that. Knowing that first, traditional healthcare, as the World Health Organization said, is not adapted for elderly care. Why? Because it's always cure-oriented when it's already too late. And second, the entire traditional system is fully focused and centric to the disease, not to the patient. The patient is here just to pay, but the disease is the focus, and post-accident, which is already too less costly and also emotional, not only financially, but emotional. So the most important thing is, how is it possible, like we heard before in the introduction talk from the OECD expert, that in 2050, there will be 2 billion seniors. But the most important thing is where those elderly person will come from? When we look at the 2 billion, 80% will come from low, medium income countries, which is Southeast Asia, the southern countries of the world, Southeast Asia, Africa, South America. And so the thing is, how is it possible to bring a better life to seniors when, number one, we don't have any visibility of the health at home? Let's take my example. Why did I started High Nounou is because 9 years ago I called my mom. My mom is in France and she's a retired doctor. I'm living here in China. And 9 years ago I called my mom and I say, hey mom, how are you doing? She says, yes, I'm fine, don't worry. But then my older brother said, no, she's not fine. She fell down and went to hospital. This pain was the trigger of High Nounou, because I realized two things. First, we don't have any visibility of the health of our parents at home. Our elderly parents, they all lie to us because they don't want to worry us, but when we know, it's already too late. So the big issue is, how is it possible to take care of our parents when we live far away from them and when we want to be in prevention? So High Nounou main 3 innovation is, number one, to be in preventive rather than to be in cure. Number 2 is to be centric to the patient rather than to the disease. And number 3 is to follow the full patient journey. The only things to do that is to be able to dedicate a super application, mobile application, we call it platform ecosystem, that is able to collect different kind of data from what we have here. Oops. This is a home wellness kit. And inside the home wellness kit, you have all what you need to collect 5-dimension data, namely genomic, metabolic, environment, behavior, and mental. And all these 5 kind of data is what we call a digital twin, patient digital twin. And then the collection is not enough. As Sandeep said, we need AI. And so we had plugged AI algorithm to help us to understand what might be the risk of diabetics, hypertension, and CVD, cardiovascular disease. So collection 5 type, AI to de-risk the main chronic disease. And then after, when we have done that, we plug the insurance telemedicine and insurance services on top of it, coming from the main insurers in China called Ping An, and also we had also the French group AXA. And so at the end, High Nounou today is able to help the children to have a peace of mind, to take care of their parents wherever they are, because they can collect the patient digital twin. We can have also evaluation of the risk, because the most important thing is, before having diabetes, you have a lot of millions of people who have pre-diabetics. Hypertension is also another killer, that you have a lot of persons who have a pre-hypertension and they don't know it. This is a silent killers, and we need those IoTs to be able to collect some data and to help those who ignore that they have a pre-diabetic situation or pre-hypertension to be able to change their lifestyle. So this is what we have been able to do with High Nounou. But what I want to emphasize, and I posted in the chat room 2 very important articles that you might take time to read. We are always focusing on health about metabolic data, biologic data with the IoTs. But did you know, as the McKinsey Health Institute, that the data that we have today are impacting only 5% of our life? 95% of the risk that impact directly our health is completely ignored and not taken care of. 95% of health, of non-health related data. And so the McKinsey Health Institute said that we need to dig into other data that really affect our health and happiness, which is social data. We need to have also spiritual data. Spiritual doesn't mean religious, but we have,
Mindfulness.
exactly. Are we sure that the people have a purpose of life? And this is very important. And mental data. And unfortunately today, when we speak of e-health solution and when we look at the 500,000 of e-health application on the market, there is 99% of app that completely ignore those 95%. But those 95% of data really trigger directly the situation of the person, the well-being. Let's say, for example, if we look at the social data, it has been proven by the science that a desocialized, isolated older person, if he doesn't have a social bonds or even communication, and we have figures, for example, in France and in China, my country is France, that around 20% of seniors doesn't have more than 5 conversations a year. 20%. And the direct relationship to the health is equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes per day. So social is very important. And I want to relate before giving the floor to another article coming from Harvard. This is the longest study on seniors, 75 years study. It's incredible. And if you watch the TEDx of these professors, it says that the best way at 50 years old, mid-age, to see if mid-age will be happy or not when you will become old, the main feature is not about biologic data, like his cholesterol level, his blood pressure or whatever, is completely related to his socialization. Does he have enough friends? Does he socialize? Is he happy with families and friends and etc.? If you see that at 50 years old, like a mid-age, he's happy and have a good social interaction, there is a highly potential that he will be happy when he will be old, and the reverse is true. So we have to focus when we think of longevity, when we think of happiness and well-being, we have to think out of the box and not just focus on medical biologic data. There is much more than that. And if you want to, you have 2 articles on that.
Thank you, Charles, for sharing this very interesting analysis, how you also related to happiness and also aging population, and also how we can improve the healthcare system and also benefit to elderly patients. So we still have only 2 more minutes before coming to the end of this session. So instead of asking you 2 questions, I will ask you these 2 questions, but please select only one of them to answer very briefly, because we need to end the sessions. It has been an interesting virtual conference accumulating 4 sessions. But now let me ask you these 2 questions, and you only please select one and please answer briefly. So the 2 questions are: what are some limitations of health tech? Number 1. Number 2, what are ways to keep healthy, both physically and mentally? And those 2 questions also really summarize a bit the different trends that we have during that virtual conference.
Sorry, I think we lost you in between. Still there? So I think while we are waiting for him, I think we can just start what exactly what he said. I think Charles, I completely agree what you said. Obviously, we have multiple data points currently, and And what you said completely makes sense. 95% of the people in this world, they have not provided the data to us. So whatever data we are analyzing only 5% of the population. So that gives really good opportunity for us to bring in those missing data points and predict diseases with that. So I think 5% data points what we are receiving. Not everyone does the blood test on a day-to-day basis or a yearly basis also. So only people who does that test, they understand that they have the high cholesterol problems or maybe diabetes or pre-diabetes. And if they are, obviously, if those data points are collected, then the second level starts. What is the second level? Second level is looking at their lifestyle, right? Looking at the how eating habits, their nutritions, and then combinations of multiple data points, and using those multiple apps, we can create the holistic, what you said, holistic views and combined views of creating not only just lifestyle or the exercise rhythm, but we can create a meaningful and holistic ways to measure their happiness, their blood glucose level, their cholesterol, their what is happening in their body, as well as their exercise, their happiness. And then all these data points are available. IoT devices are capturing that. And obviously we have, every person on this planet currently has social media accounts where you can measure some of the happiness and what makes them happy and so on and so forth. So data points are there available. It's just the willingness. And what you have done with Nounou, I think it's enormous. And we just need something similar approaches in this world, and something similar innovations which can provide us a better living world, in that ways. So back to you. While you were away, I just wanted to talk about.
Thank you, Sandeep. Perhaps Charles and Pragya, final word to this session.
I think my entire focus is on mindfulness and how mindfulness is connected with relationships, how it is connected with our relation with children, with society. So I think to make society a healthier place to live in, let's listen to each other more with an empathetic ears and without any judgmental approach. So this is what I have to say. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Pragya. Charles, the last word for you.
Yes, whatever we are doing during COVID or when you will be off, the most important thing is whatever we're doing, if we can dig into research to solve a humanistic issue that already impact the world today, that is the best purpose of our life. Either we're doing it as a small level like us, startup, or public institution like Sandeep, or whatever, the most important thing is the vision and the dream. And so I will conclude with what drives me in my life is a citation of a French very famous person who wrote The Little Prince, right? Saint-Exupéry, and he said, let your dream divorce your life before your life divorce your dream. And so you never regret to follow up your dream, but at the end of the life, you always regret not to have followed your dream. So whatever dream it is, make it big, scale up, and follow your dream.
Thank you, Charles. It's a perfect conclusion for that session. Follow your dreams. And again, thanks to all participants, guest speakers, Pragya, Charles, and Sandeep for these fruitful conversations, and also organizers, the Asian Network and area. And see you all next time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot thanks for organizing this, and wonderful to catch up with all of you. Have a wonderful day ahead, or good night. Yeah.
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks for the organization.